everybody. Welcome to another edition of Inside Blue 360, the weekly roundup. I've got a really, really special show today and some very, very special guests, which mean a lot to this guy right here and everybody who lives in this house. Like we always like to do, we're going to start by remembering those law enforcement officers who have died in the line of duty since the last time we recorded an episode. Unfortunately, we've lost a few since that last time. And this is from the Officer Down Memorial page, which can be found at odmp.org. Great, great site. Since the last time we aired in the line of duty was lost Lieutenant Stephen Williams of the Moody Police Department in Moody, Alabama. Police Officer Efren Coronel of the El Centro Police Department in El Centro, California. Sheriff Andy Derek Clark of the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office in Missouri. And Sergeant Damon Gutzwiller of the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office in California. I've been to Santa Cruz, beautiful place. They had terrible violence out there. That's related to all the disturbances that are going on across the country. We honor their heroism and mourn their loss. And if you want to read more about these brave heroes, please go to odmp.org. So this morning, we're not going to talk about Minneapolis or uprisings or killer cops and how they have ruined our profession. But we're going to talk about something that was pretty scary, but turned out to be a really, really happy story. Our guests today are retired Detective Michael Sasuk of the NYPD and his wife, retired police officer Diane Sasuk of the Suffolk County Police Department. Mike was my partner on the NYPD for about 8 years, I think, like a long, long time. Mike was best man at my wedding. I am the godfather of one of Diane's daughters, Alyssa. And Mike is like a brother to me. I had one sibling. I had a sister. Mike is like the brother I never had. Mike had a very distinguished career with the NYPD, served 2 decades with the NYPD in some very, very cool gigs. He was with me in Midtown South as a patrol cop. And then we were anti-crime cops, which basically means you drive around in plain clothes and you look for troublemakers and then you follow those troublemakers and they don't see you. And when they make trouble, you arrest them. We were in the intelligence division together where we had the distinct honor and privilege to bodyguard maybe one of the best judges in the history of New York State, the Honorable Leslie Crocker Snyder. And we worked in the police commissioner's office together for Commissioner Bernie Carrick. And Mike ended up retiring out of the Drug Enforcement Task Force, which is a joint federal local task force that does major narcotics cases. They don't grab people with nickel bags, put it that way. Diane was once part of the greatest police department in the world, in the NYPD, where she worked in Midtown North. But she wanted to make more than minimum wage. So she went out to the Suffolk County Police Department to earn a decent salary and to be closer to home. She was a lifelong Suffolk County resident, and I think that was a nice gig for her. She retired after being injured in the line of duty and having some pretty serious orthopedic surgery. So, but we're glad that she's looking good and doing well. And we're here to talk to you, Mike, about your experience with COVID-19. So I want to bring you back to like mid-March. You're seeing all the news about COVID-19. You're a medic. I guess I should have mentioned to our audience that for 4 decades now, you've served with the Babylon Fire Department as a volunteer. You've been everything, a firefighter, a medic, a lieutenant, a captain, all the different assistant chief ranks, and you are a former chief, as it's known, because you were the chief of department for 2 years, just about 4 or 5 years ago. So you're still involved, you're still hands-on, you're still a public servant and a first responder and a frontliner and all those things. And you've been hearing about COVID, and you guys were probably picking up COVID patients What were your thoughts back in early March about COVID?
First thing that I thought about was we need some toilet paper. So I was running from store to store, trying to put supplies together and gear up for the upcoming quarantine that I think everybody, well, most people were probably not anticipating, but I watched the news religiously, so I knew that something was happening. Felt a little run down that week, a little tired, more tired than usual, and it just progressively got worse.
Diane, where were you when Mike first started feeling run down?
I had taken two of my daughters and one of their boyfriends and their brother, and we had gone to Florida. My daughter Michaela was supposed to go to California on a school softball trip, and I was supposed to chaperone, and that had gotten canceled. And Alyssa, our daughter Alyssa, was supposed to go to Florida for to watch her boyfriend play baseball in college, and that got canceled. And then school got canceled, and we were really kind of sitting around doing nothing. And I said, you know what, kids, you want to go down to Florida for a couple of days? And Mike didn't want to go with us. His sister was in the hospital at the time. He had work on Thursday night, and we were going to go from Sunday to Friday and just spend a couple of days away from what started to be the craziness. We went down to Florida. The weather was great. It was like business as usual down there, and we had no idea of what we were going to come into. So.
Okay, so you're in Florida with two of the kids and a couple of stragglers who were hanging on with you. and Mike, when you were supposed to go to work on Thursday night, was that on the ambulance or something else you were doing?
No, I teach EMT classes for Suffolk County EMS, and one of our classes was scheduled. So I went to the class. You know, that night we started to use the PPE even during class, masks and gloves and so forth. We actually sent one student home who was exposed to somebody. So we had to send that student home that night. And I just, after the class is like 3 hours long. After the third hour, I was really, really not feeling well. And it's out in Stony Brook, actually, the class, which is kind of ironic since that's where I wound up in the hospital. But it was out in that area in a school district, and I made it home.
How far of a drive is that for you?
It's probably about a 40-minute ride.
So you had to drive home feeling like crap, right?
Yeah. And I knew it. It was like, you know, the achy feeling, you know something's coming on and you don't know what it is. So I made it home and went to bed and stayed in bed for probably 3 days by the time, saved maybe a trip to the urgent care and one trip to an emergency room where they turned me away after about 20 minutes, told me to go home.
Yeah. So Diane, you come back from Florida and Mike is deteriorating. He goes from achy and feeling like crap to worse and worse and worse.
Right.
My wife's a nurse, as you guys know, my wife, Madeline, and she disagreed with this philosophy that the hospitals had, that they were only going to take people in that were at death's door. That was a decision that was made because they thought that the hospital system in the state would be overloaded. And she still thinks to this day that they should have treated people like Mike before it became, life or death, because maybe they could have, headed these things off at the pass, so to speak. But you're getting care from your wife. I'm assuming, Diane, as you're taking care of Mike as he's deteriorating right before your eyes, you're in close proximity to him all the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we came back on Friday. We were a little worried that maybe the flight would be delayed or something was going to happen with the flight. And once we knew that the flight was going to kick off like it was supposed to, I called home to let him know he was going to pick us up from the airport. And he told me that he had been laying in bed all day and he didn't know if he was going to get to the airport. He said, but I'll get there. And I said, don't be crazy. We got other kids in the house that drive. It's MacArthur Airport, 20 minutes away from here. Let somebody else get us. You rest. But in the interim, I called one of my daughters and I said, listen, Dad's upstairs. He's not feeling well. Has anybody checked on him? So she went up and found a thermometer in the house that probably hasn't been used in forever because nobody here is ever sick. And she tells me his temperature is 105. And Mike is like, there's no way my temperature is 105. I don't believe the thermometer. I know I'm hot. I know I have a temperature, but it's not 105. I'm in Florida. I call urgent care. I said, my husband is home sick. What time are you open till? Can my daughter bring him in? What are you doing? They're treating in the tent, so we won't treat him if it's 105. He's going to have to go to the emergency room. I said, well, we're not really sure if it's 105. She said, bring him in. We're seeing our last patient at 7:45. And he wouldn't go. He was like, nope, I'm not going. He's never sick. So he's like thinking he's going to beat this thing out by himself. We had no idea what it was. Nobody we knew had COVID. So he didn't have the symptoms at the time. There were 4 things. If you had these 4 things, you were COVID. He didn't have those 4 things. He had different things that weren't really being associated with COVID at the time. So he was like, nope, not going. So I came home from the airport, went upstairs to check on him. He did not look good at all. I let him sleep through the night. And on Saturday, I said, we're taking you to urgent care. We're not playing with this. We're going to urgent care. Brought him to urgent care. You had to sit in your car. We waited hours. And I knew at that time, I said, there's no way he'd be dealing with this bullshit if he wasn't sick. We were sitting in the car for hours. You have to call. You don't know if they're forgetting that you're out there. They're doing what they can, but, it was a slow process. I brought him to the tent when it was his time. He almost fell. The doctor's like, she's like, you can't go in with him. I said, he's weak. She said, well, why is he weak? I said, well, he's been laying in bed for 3 days. First of all, he's probably dehydrated. He's sick. He's got a fever. And she tells us he's one of the sickest people we've seen all day. And Mike, also in denial, says, well, at the rate they're going, they haven't seen very many people. So I'm not caring about that. She said, I think you should go to the hospital. He's like, nope, we're not, we can watch ourselves. I know what I'm doing. My wife's not dumb. We can do this ourselves. So home we went.
Michael, you said 2 things there. I was like his other spouse, Diane, because, we worked together for 8 years, right? And you said 2 things: stubborn.
Absolutely.
I refusing to do things, and doesn't get sick. And I never remember Mike getting sick. I always remember Mike being stubborn. He would get cranky. I used to tell people that we would get in a radio car sometimes. It's just like regular married couples. We'd be mad at each other. So we wouldn't talk to each other the whole night. We'd drive around in silence. And then the next night it would be over. We'd be back to normal. So, so Mike's sick. You know it. Thank God, Diane, that you know it. Because the chief there, he didn't know it. The detective didn't know it. You didn't detect, Mike. You didn't detect. So at what point do you go to the first hospital you go to?
It was Sunday. Saturday we went to urgent care. It was Sunday.
Okay.
My fire department, they took me by ambulance. My cousin, as you know, Billy is a paramedic.
Billy Bender. Billy Bender. I never know which one he is on Facebook because there's like 16 Billy Benders. I'm always getting friended by Billy Bender the 13th. 5 of them, whatever. They're Roman numerals like the Super Bowl. It's
Very
like,
true. Very-
so Billy Bender, shout out to Billy Bender of the Babylon Fire Department, also Mike's cousin who came over to help Mike. Go ahead, please, Mike. You might have froze up.
So they
Okay, you unfroze. Go ahead.
Hospital.
Mhm.
They take me to the local hospital, and which shall remain nameless at this point. But they turned me away. About 20 minutes later, they turned me away. They didn't even, no testing, no real, other than baseline vital signs, no real examination or anything else. They told me that if I wasn't sick with COVID, that I was going to get it by being in the hospital, and I would be better off at home, and to come back if I felt like I needed to be intubated. I mean, they don't know my
crap.
but how do you tell somebody that? How do you tell somebody, a layperson, what does that feel like, that I need to be intubated? So a series of phone calls happened with the chief of my department, Billy, as you well know, is hooked up with the county, and I obviously work for the county also, but series of phone calls back and forth with some officials. And the next morning I got a phone call from the hospital that they made a mistake and they want me to come back. So I didn't feel confident with them at that point. So I denied their request.
I'm glad, because we're going to get on to now the people that saved your life. So now it's Monday. It's Monday now? Are we on to Monday, or is it still Sunday?
Sunday night, and fast forward to Monday, yes, with the phone call. Yeah.
Okay, so you find a friendly voice or a friendly person is found for you at Stony Brook University Medical Center, who are the come in second place behind the Sasuk women in the list of heroes in this story. So Sasuk women number 1, Stony Brook number 2, close second. So you go to Stony Brook Hospital. I assume you go by ambulance at this point?
Yeah. Again, my department comes, picks me up again, takes me, again, it's about a 40-minute ride, 40-minute ride. And they take me out to Stony Brook. I was very sick. I was telling my cousin came with us. I was telling him I was very, very sick. I couldn't even, he wanted to chat a little bit with the nurse that he knew that was actually taking me in. And I was like, Bill, I can't, I have to go in. I have to go in now. And after that, it's kind of a blank to me what happened until I got extubated. I can go back in my phone and see that I was in contact with the family for the next day and a half or so before I got intubated. But I don't really remember those conversations.
Wow. So you don't remember them saying they were going to intubate you?
Vaguely remember
okay.
That was a phone call I made at home. I remember that vaguely, but other than that, I don't remember. And there were a series of text messages back and forth with.
You actually texted with me, just a quick one-liner. I said I was praying for you. You said I think you said I need them. Mike, which really hit me because of who you prayed with back in 1989. You know, I was like, shit. So I'm not gonna get upset. So I don't know that this is like, but the way I found out that this was all going sideways for you, and this is a little odd, but I guess I would just text you or call you. I never had Diane's cell phone number in my life. Never needed it. Knew your home number, I knew your cell number. And I think there was another cell number of yours that I always called, and I would always get a text back. Mike hasn't had this phone for years. Like the same guy all the time. I would be texting
that was
one of these fire department guys.
Right.
So luckily I never texted anything too embarrassing to any of those people. So Diane sends me a Facebook direct message, and I think she says, "Your boy is in a bad way," and it was like getting hit, like hitting the stomach. And obviously now at this point in time, for any of our viewers who are not in the New York area, the time frame that Mike is talking about is the end of March. It was like a tsunami hit the greater New York area. That's the best way I can describe it. It was like a tsunami. Everybody's getting sick. Everybody's going to the hospital. People are dying all the time. All you hear on the streets are ambulances because the state went into shutdown and everything's closed. I never heard so many birds in my life. You guys live in suburbia, but I live in the city. And with like no ambient noise, there's like birds singing all the time. You never hear them. It was like a bizarre movie to live through. So obviously this was pretty serious. And when Diane and I exchange each other's cell phone numbers, and I make sure Diane has Madeline's cell phone numbers just in case she needs to ask like a technical medical question, and Madeline is on standby to answer any questions. And I get the call that you're intubated, and I'm like, holy crap. So Diane, this is where I want to talk to you a little bit. So your wife and I never spoke so much in our lives as the 18 days that you were intubated. What?
I actually miss you now.
Me too. I miss you too. I knew one thing right off the get-go. I was reading Diane's Facebook posts, and I was reading the posts of the girls, and it was like overwhelmingly apparent that the people of the village of Babylon were responding as good neighbors and friends and taking care of your family. So I knew I didn't have to get in my car and go out there and do anything. So I was like, all right. So I'm like, Diane has got to be freaking burning a candle at both ends. First of all, I'm going to clarify for our audience out there, Mike's in the hospital in the fight of his life against COVID, and two of his daughters that are home that didn't go on the trip to Florida. Apparently the trip to Florida had some kind of miraculous immunization thing. Maybe that's why Florida's not getting hit, because they're in Florida. Who the hell knows? His two daughters that didn't go on a trip got COVID. One, Nicole, had been very, very sick when she was a baby, and very sick with a lung infection. So, of course, COVID is scary, scary, scary sick for her. And the other daughter, Jessica, is one of us. She's a Port Authority police officer. So that was pretty scary stuff. So Diane here has got two daughters who've got COVID. She's got her husband in a fight for his life. And I decided that all I was going to do is remind Diane of what she needed to do. Diane, what do you need to do every day?
Cat naps, notes, and hydration.
That's right. Because I was like, I knew you were going to be exhausted, and I wanted you to remind her that even a 30-minute nap, it helps. I knew you'd forget stuff. I knew. And then I saw one day we were talking, and on a FaceTime, you had like a binder almost of notes. So it was like great. I was like, excellent. And I didn't want you to get dehydrated because then you would get sick, and I didn't want you to get sick.
Right.
And I figured that I could do that. So I would text Diane like out of the blue, in the morning, at night, in the middle of the day, just those three little messages: cat naps, notes, hydration. That's it. Boom, send it off.
Okay.
Talk to me a little bit about the scare. So Mike is intubated. He's on a ventilator.
Right.
You're getting all this information about his oxygen saturation, his PEEP. I had to look that up, or I asked Madeline. I didn't know what a PEEP was. I thought a PEEP was like a freaking Easter snack, right? That you got like or something.
Yeah, I think I have like some type of medical degree now. But
Yeah.
So the day that he was intubated, I actually had Nicole out at urgent care. Took her to the same urgent care. She started getting worse, started having trouble breathing, and that was on March 25th. So I had her out to urgent care. They thought that she was okay to go home, and we come home to my two daughters in tears, telling me that a doctor had just called, and unfortunately they had to handle a phone call where the doctor was asking my daughter Jessica about Mike's code status, which, you know, I was like, code status, what is? And then she was talking about what his medical wishes would be. if he needed, you know, if he needed that type of intervention. And I think it was at that time that we realized that this was a lot more than what we even could imagine it to be. So I got on the phone with her right away, and she said, no, actually, he's doing a little bit better. She said, we were having a team from ICU come down to evaluate him to see whether or not he needed to be put on a respirator, but he's doing a little better now, so we think we're going to hold off. So I was like, all right, that's great. We started to do a little bit around the house, and all of a sudden we got a phone call from Mike. And it was like, you got a phone call from Mike, you stopped whatever you were doing. And he said to me, I think they're going to be bringing me to ICU, and I think they're going to be intubating me. And I was like, nah, that's not what they're doing. They just told me that that's not what they're doing. Well, sure enough, all of a sudden things start in the motion, and the doctors are there, and we can hear them in the background, and they're taking him to ICU, and he's going to be intubated. So, you know, it was bad, and I'm probably going to get upset right now, but it was bad. So it was, our daughter, her birthday was the next day. Our anniversary was the next day. 32 years we were married. And, you know, he said, happy anniversary. He told us all to be tested. And it's still, at this point, we still did not know that this was COVID. They were treating him. They had already started treating with the, hydroxychloroquine. They had already started that on him. So we felt that that was, you know, everybody was saying, are they trying that malaria medication with him? You know, they're doing that. He's going to be fine, you know. And,
I'm going to break the tension for you a little bit, okay? How many crazy texts and calls did you get from, like, medical experts who are, like, normally, you know, automobile repairmen and cops and accountants telling you the doctors need to do this for Mike because they read about it on Facebook? I was getting them.
So many. So many.
Go ahead, please.
So many.
Oh, it was crazy.
And I'm calling Stony Brook, and I'm, you know, now he's intubated. They get him on the ventilator successfully. The doctors call me, and I'm saying to the doctor, like, okay, so we're going to be in conversation, like, you know, 1 time, 2 times a day. He's like, I don't think 2 times a day. I said, well, if I can talk to you once during the day, and I could talk to the nurses maybe once in the morning and once at night, I could be satisfied with that, because I figured out very early on that the updates that I was going to be getting were really just for me. It wasn't going to change not a single thing that they were doing for him while he was in the hospital. And there were times in that hospital, you know, it was a few days when I realized that he was in the right place, and that they were going to do everything for him that they could. And there were times that they got to the bottom of their toolbox with what could be done for him. And there were times where it was looking very grim. And they never gave up. They never stopped. And once I realized that they were just going to do whatever they could do, it was easier for me to kind of let go of that a little bit. And but it was tough. Not being there was probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. You know, we're childhood sweethearts. We've been together since I'm 14 years old. So there was probably never a time in our life where there were a few trips that he would take to maybe a tree convention, or that I would take on a girls' cruise, where we might not see each other for a couple of days. But probably never a time where we didn't talk on the phone. So, you know, and I have to make decisions, and the first thing I want to do, let me ask Mike what he thinks about this. But the decisions are about Mike, and I can't ask him. So, you know, it was very, very trying. You know, thank God I had the girls here with me. Everybody was taking care of us. You know, you had said to me, Diane, what do you need? What do you need? I said, Jerry, I need to get in that hospital. I need to get in there. That's what I need. So you, yeah.
well, the calls that were made to try to make that happen, and I want you to tell your your story.
I get it. Hey, Jerry.
Bernie Carrick spoke to the current police commissioner, who and I was told by Bernie that the governor himself says no one could go in. Like it's like really like, and it's a state hospital. Stony Brook's a state hospital, so Cuomo probably had more sway there than he might have in other hospitals.
I actually thought that was pretty funny because I was saying that knowing that that was not even a possibility, but you didn't let it end there. You were like, hey, listen, let me try. So
listen, you never know. You never know. It's sometimes you just got to find that right person who's got the card key to get you in, right?
You were like, the commissioner knows, and then you get back to me later on in that night, and you say to me, Cuomo has an executive order out, and I don't think we can get you in there.
The best is, Bernie says to me, please tell Diane to don't do anything rash.
I was going to. I had said to him because he was somebody that, you guys worked with him. To me, he's like a celebrity. So I'm now getting texts from Bernie Carrick asking me, he wants to take care of my family. People are delivering food to us, which is great. But nobody said, how are you guys like financially? And he's asking me, and he wants to help. And I'm getting texts from him every day. And he says to me, listen, I know Mike, and he would not be happy if you get arrested. Because I told him, I said, I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to knock somebody over the head. I'm going to have to take their access pass, and I'm going to have to get in there. Because I needed eyes in there. I needed to see what was happening to him. I needed him to hear my voice. I needed him to feel my touch. I needed that. And I thought that he needed that because, our daughter, ironically, not ironically, but, Stony Brook saved her life 28 years ago. And so we knew, Stony Brook, we have all loyalty to Stony Brook, but Stony Brook saved her life 28 years ago. And there was a point in time where Stony Brook couldn't handle what needed to be done for her, and she was flown to Pittsburgh. So for a couple of days, she was in Pittsburgh on her own. And when Mike was finally able to get out there, and then I followed up probably like 5 days later, the staff there told us how she turned a corner so much after we got there. She needs to hear her parents' voices. She needs to feel her parents' touch. She's doing so much better because you guys are here. So that's what I had in my mind, thinking that he needs that to be able to get better. And I'm thinking, what is he thinking? If he has any awareness that we're not here, does he think that we don't care? Does he realize that it's COVID time and no families are allowed? Like, we had no idea what he could be thinking. I reached out to a friend of ours who was in a very bad car accident years ago, and he was on a ventilator for 21 days. And I reached out to him and I said, what was that experience like for you? I want to know what Mike is feeling. I want to know what's going on. Could you feel things? Could you hear things? And he said, he wasn't aware of the things that were happening at the time they were happening, but he would have very vivid dreams. And then after he came out of after he was extubated, he realized that the dreams that he was having had something to do with the experiences that he was having in the hospital, the touch, the sound, the conversations that were being held around him. He would incorporate those things into his dream. So it was, yeah.
That's wild.
So Mike had nothing. So he had weird dreams.
I had very weird dreams.
Mike, and I have some questions about your time under. We'll get to that. So Diane, while this is going on, and probably other friends of you guys had similar experiences. First off, every time I get a text or call from Diane, I'm going to my wife and saying, this is what Diane said, because I would write it down. I would take notes. And Madeline has got like her professional face on, and she'd be like, "Oh, that's good. That's better than yesterday." She'd always find something. You could take 4 steps back, but if you took 1 step forward, Madeline would say, "Oh, that's good. That's better than yesterday," right? And I'd be like, "That doesn't sound good." And the governor, every day, and the governor speaks very slowly at his press conferences. And I don't know if you were watching these press conferences, Diane. I'm glad you weren't. I was. Every day, he would say only 1 out of 5 people makes it off the vent. 1 out of 5.
Right.
And the longer you're on the vent, the less chance you're going to make it. And obviously, we're stretching out 12, 13, 14, 15 days now. And I think it was about day 14 or 15. Madeline looks at me in the morning. We're having coffee, and she says, "Mike's got to get off the ventilator." And I'm like, "Oh, shit. Maddie thinks Mike's going to die. Fuck." So I cry again. I cried so many tears, Mike. I got dehydrated. I hydrated with vodka, so I was good. So I'm like, oh, man. So I was like, this, there's no way. But you know what? You would live another day. You would live another day. At the same time that this is going on, and as Diane said, Diane must have got 1,000 of them. I got at least 100 of people making wacky recommendations about what the doctors have to do to treat Mike. Like, I'm going to call up the doc and say, "Hey, doc, it's Jerry Kane from Manhattan Robbery Squad. Listen, my friend Tom, my friend Tom from the Dwyer Golf outing, my old friend who used to come every year. He had a friend named Sal. I don't want to name his last name, who was going through the exact same thing you are. And like his wife would text Tom, and it would be like almost exactly like the text that Diane would send me, and he'd send them to me, and I would send Diane's text to him. And there were days that he was doing better than you, and I was like, "Oh, how come Mike's not doing good today?" And there were days he was doing worse than you. And he ended up staying on the vent for about 40 days, and he didn't make it.
Wow.
And he was a little older than you. I think he was like 62. Guy was in good shape. I had met him a couple times. He was a nice guy, a regular guy. And I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense to me, this disease. But it really hit home to me how lucky you are. So, I mean, you're a freaking lucky guy. And we're all lucky that you're here. I'm very, very happy that you're here there, brother. This is, my heart is like so full looking at your face. Did I ever tell you have a beautiful face? You have a beautiful face. So I got some questions for you about being under, all right?
Sure.
Did you see the light?
No.
You got ripped off, man. You got totally ripped off. What's the point of being under for 18 days if you don't see the light?
I think there was somebody trying to drag me. The chief of detectives, Al Seidman, called me.
Oh, all right. So go ahead. Please tell.
That was a phone call from him. I don't think we ever met him. I don't know.
No, I don't think we ever met Al Seidman.
We ever met him, and I was having visions of cops that had been killed in the line of duty, like how they used to put their ID cards up on the TV or in the newspaper, and I was running through those. I was like living in the 70s, 80s. In my dreams, and I would get this call from Al Seidman, and Mike, I got this case, and I'm glad I never answered the call, because once I got out of the hospital and you and I chatted about this, we researched him, and he passed away, I think in 2012 or 13. So
and he might not be in the good place.
I don't want to work in that detective squad up there right now. So
maybe he's in a good spot, right? Yeah,
but that was one of the dreams I had. One of the things I dreamt about.
So that is a pretty wild dream. What's with A-Rod? You have a problem with A-Rod?
Listen, A-Rod was going out with my niece. And my niece is not J-Lo, but A-Rod wasn't treating her kids very well. So my cousin and I were going to go take care of business. That was one dream.
All right.
The crazy thing was, I think he really believed his dream, because once he came off the vent and he was able to talk to us, he was like, Diane, I have some questions for you. He's like, is Robin dating Alex Rodriguez? And no, like, but he really believed. There was some, when he first came off, there were some wacky things. He wanted a helicopter to come to his window at Stony Brook, and he wanted to get out of there. He was
well, you know, Mike, we almost once had a helicopter go to Stony Brook for you in 2000, I think. We'll save that for part 2. Mike Sasuk redo. When the fans demanded you come back for another episode, you can tell that story. And maybe I'll come clean about the side view mirrors for car number 8423 or whatever.
Yeah. Both mirrors.
Both mirrors. Mike, talk to me about and Diane, talk to me about the people of the village of Babylon, who really, really impressed me during this whole process.
Well, at first, we started getting food, like almost right away. Food deliveries to the door. And we were also, we wound up quarantined in the house. So we couldn't go out. We couldn't go out for anything because as it turned out, which we found out, our daughter Jessica, the Port Authority cop, she wound up testing positive later on. Now, she was the first person to get sick, but we had no idea. She was sick like March 10th. She would come home from work, she would fall asleep. She didn't have a sense of taste or smell. She was exhausted. And we wanted her to go to Florida with us. And she was like, yeah, I gotta work, I can't go. So the first person to deliver food was somebody that she had gone through the academy with, that she hasn't kept in touch with. But all of a sudden, his dad is out delivering food, and they have to leave everything on the porch. Anything we needed toilet paper, we needed water, we needed anything. It had to be brought in from outside people because Suffolk County Department of Health, once they got Mike's test results that he was positive, they put our house on quarantine. We were on quarantine for 14 days, but then as my daughter Jessica got positive, they extended that quarantine. Then my daughter Nicole was positive, they extended the quarantine. So there were about 3 weeks where we couldn't leave the house. So anything that we got in, food, anything, essentials, shampoo, hand sanitizer, anything, had to come in from the outside. So right away, Mike's chief of department actually just became the chief of the department. He showed up. He was telling me you got to use a dehumidifier in the house because when the particles hit it's airborne, and when the particles hit the disease, it's going to fall to the ground. And everybody had all of these wacky ideas of how to keep COVID from getting to the rest of us, keep the rest of us safe, and bring in sanitizer. People were bringing food. There was a group that Babylon started up called Babylon Strong. And one day there was I think we were probably the first recipients of any donations from them. It started out as we got a little bag on our porch that had a ton of gift cards in it, hundreds of dollars worth of gift cards to local businesses and places that we could call for food. And I think it started as that. Then later on, they got into actually delivering food and making masks and doing food drives and doing a whole bunch of stuff. But his fire department, the people of his fire department were great. My daughter's command at JFK, they fed us for about a week. They just, don't worry about dinner, your JFK family has you. And then they took up a collection, which, you know, we get pensions. Like, we were okay in that regard. But just the feeling of, one of her coworkers and friends came one day, brought her a check, a large check that they had donated. You know, it was amazing. Through the years of us being cops, you know, we've always...
Well, you guys have given, we've given, you know, we spent our whole lives giving. Yeah, so... Yeah.
Tell them. I always told Jessica, I said, listen, you never know when you're going to be on the other end of it. You know, They ask for 20, you give 40. That or you give 100. You just give. Never question. And she couldn't believe it, because this was the first time that she was actually feeling it as a cop herself, and knowing what that brotherhood is like. So that was but
very, very nice.
Brought stuff over. I've been retired for 8 years out of the 1st precinct in Suffolk County. The midnight cop that came the night that he was taken to the hospital, after the ambulance had left, I was talking to him about the experience we had the night before, because the ambulance was here 2 nights in a row. And I think that same cop was here 2 nights in a row. And I started talking to him. He went back to the 1st precinct. He told the cops there what was happening. He texted me, "We're sending you dinner." He dropped off, they took up a collection. They bought us dinner, and then he dropped off in cash the remaining part of what the donation was. And that was like we had a brotherhood, 1st precinct brotherhood. So that got brought to us.
Very nice.
We ordered food one day from a restaurant down the block. The guy knows Mike as Mike the Chief. He knows us as, 2 chicken rolls and shrimp parmesan, no pasta,
Please name this restaurant and tell everybody what they ended up doing.
It's Sal's Pizza, Sal's Pizzeria.
In Babylon, New York.
Babylon. And so we ordered from them one night. One night we just said, you know what? We just want pizza. I mean, we were 5 girls here in this house, and we were getting food enough for a football team. One night we just wanted to have pizza. So we ordered from them. They come to deliver, and my daughter tells them, this is Mike the fireman. This is Mike the chief. And the man was almost in tears on the phone. Wound up calling us the next day saying, "Listen, whatever you need," and I'm not even talking in the terms of food. You guys need water, you need paper towels, anything you need. You're a family, we're a family, we're going to be here for you. Well, come to be, just a short amount of time later, a few days later, Babylon Strong reaches out to him. They want to send food up to Stony Brook Hospital on our behalf for him. They go to Sal's to do it. Sal's matches their donation and winds up making up, 30, 40 individual meals, which were the greatest thing, because with COVID going around, it's nice to get food donations, but if you're digging in and then somebody else is digging in,
right?
Made up individual meals, had them brought up to the hospital, to his unit, and 30, 40, God knows how many meals got delivered up to the hospital on our behalf. And the staff knew it, because when they talked to me, they were like,
they told me. Yeah,
they even told him when he came, "Oh yeah, the food was delicious. I had eggplant parm. I had this, I had that." It was just, it was just wonderful. So many. I had called you. I said, when it looked like he was going to be coming home, I said, "We're going to need stuff. We're going to need a hospital bed. We're going to need," and you said, "I'm going to make those calls for you." And you took care of that, right? That you called the ESG.
I did. I had, well, hold on. Let me find it here. I can't find it. I had the 2003 NYPD phone directory. That's only 17 years old. But I'm like, I hope they still have the same number. And I call up the medical assistance unit of emergency service, and they answer, "Yep, medical assistance, or ESU, whatever." I'm like, "Are you the guys that do the hospital beds and the wheelchairs?" "Yep, that's all. What do you need? Where are you?" And I'm like, "What? Where? Long Island or upstate of the city?" I go, "Long Island." They're like, "Damn it. We just the truck just left Long Island like an hour ago." I'm like, "Well, he's not out yet, so we got a couple days." And I know they tightened you up with medical equipment, with a hospital bed, with a wheelchair, with a cane, right, or something like that, or a walker.
Mode, everything, anything we need.
And all they asked,
I was set up when I got home.
Now, they were worried about getting COVID themselves. They had half their unit was out with COVID. They didn't want to go into your house. Not that you don't have a lovely house, but they didn't want to go into it. And So I go to Diane. I go, they don't want to come in the house. Diane goes, we just had our back deck redone. They can go right from the driveway to the deck, and I've got French doors. And I tell them, they're like, great, we'll assemble it on the deck. And she goes, does she have someone that can wheel it in? I go, yeah, she's got like 4 kids. They're all, they're all able-bodied. They'll wheel it right in. And that's how it worked out, right, Diane? Is that what they did? They built it on the deck? And fantastic. When I saw that picture, when I saw that picture of the NYPD truck in your driveway, I actually got a little choked up. I was like, man, you're retired a long time, Mike. And the NYPD still cares about you. Still part of the NYPD.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. I would not
just with over the years reached out.
So I got to give some shout outs to some people who supported me as I was letting everybody know what was going on. First of all, to our Midtown South alumni, Mike, including producer Phil, who's behind the screen watching this. In the beginning, Diane would be updating me a couple times a day, and I would be updating a couple times a day, and then people would be commenting on the post from two previous, like, and I'd be like trying to keep everybody like, maybe about day 3 or 4 of the journey, I decided just to do an update every day, and I would title it, April 4th update, today, blah blah blah. And everybody from Midtown South was praying for you. They put your picture up as the banner on the Facebook page, and everybody was praying really, really, really hard. I have to give a shout out to Mother Angela Arbib of the Benedictine nuns, especially the Abbey in Bethlehem, Connecticut. Through my friends Kathy and Peter Halstead, they're, by the way, responsible for bringing Grey Goose to America. It's a long story, but if you have Grey Goose, think of them. And Jägermeister. And I think there was like a Jägermeister joke about COVID that I saw on the internet that I sent to them. And they knew about you, and I told them all about you, and I think I got a little choked up. And they hooked me up with Mother Angela. And she had every Benedictine nun in the world praying for you. And their mission is to pray relentlessly. You get a lot of prayers. I prayed, not relentlessly. I took a couple of breaks, okay? So I gotta give a big shout out to them. I gotta give a shout out to a Facebook group called the 8 o'clock Shot. Did you look at that, Mike? I think I invited you to the group. I put a thing up about you, and I think like 3,000 people commented or something like that. It was unbelievable. It was overwhelming, actually. I definitely didn't read all the comments because I would have got carpal tunnel syndrome trying to scroll through them. It was overwhelming. And people did a really, really, really good job. I guess the most important people, though, in this whole thing, the Babylon Fire Department, they did do a great job, and the Suffolk County Police Department, and the Port Authority Police Department, and Bernie Kerrick, and the NYPD, ESU. But Mike, the most important, the people that really hit it out of the park, like rock stars, your wife and your daughters. Yep. It was awe-inspiring. It really was. It was very inspiring. So I knew you couldn't die because they were doing all that work. You couldn't die after they did all that work for you. So you're a loved man, Mike.
This woman right here, she took care of. I know she couldn't be there, but a couple of the things that put me over the edge that I think got me through this. One was we started working out about a year ago. So it gave me, I think that gave me the strength to push through this. But the most important thing I think was this young lady right here. She made me a person and not a patient to the nursing staff. That nursing staff at Stony Brook would come in even if they weren't caring for me, they would come in and visit and see me and make sure that I knew that they were there. You know, they rotated around from patient to patient, but that
11 South.
11 South was the COVID unit I was on, and it's disbanded now. It's no longer, but she made them make me a person. She told them about what I did, about what I had at home in terms of, you know, 5 daughters and, you know, what I had to come home to and what I had to fight for. And definitely, I think, made the difference.
Well, Mike, we're glad you made it. COVID's a real serious thing for our police family. I think 60 or 70 officers have died across the country. These are active officers. Probably a couple hundred retired officers have passed away. The NYPD has lost 8, I believe, active. I don't know how many retired. A little selfish here. I'm glad you're not on that list, brother. I really am glad you're not on that list. Everybody dies. You know, in police work, we all know certainly that everybody dies because you're around death all the time. You see it. But I didn't want you to die yet. And I'm glad you didn't. And you look great, by the way.
Thank you.
You look freaking great. You really do.
In person, by the way.
I'm going to come out. We're going to come out to see you. I got to tell you, I'm a little disappointed when Diane told me that, or maybe Jessica told me that they shaved you while you were still unconscious. I was hoping you would come out with like a big freaking bushy hair, big Santa Claus beard, like looking completely different than I've ever seen you in your life. You look exactly the way you looked when we were radio car partners, except your mustache is gray now instead of black. So, you know, no change. I feel a little ripped off by that. I'm ripped off that you didn't see the light. I'm trying to look at my notes here to make sure we thanked everybody. We thanked everybody. Stony Brook University Medical Center did a freaking outstanding job. Like I said earlier, number two, Stony Brook comes in second in the list of heroes. Number 1 are the Sasuk women, and those are Diane, Brandy, Nicole, Jessica, Alyssa, my goddaughter, and Michaela, and they just like hit it out of the park. Maybe you could form like an action team if someone else is in crisis. You girls could roll in and save the day. You know,
if I may, we talk about our neighbor and friend around the corner who's still battling COVID in Stony Brook. Her husband, John, is a NYPD detective, works in the 103. He's home with the kids right now, and she's been in the hospital, I think, about 60 days. So,
oh, jeez.
Wow. Easy. Hopefully, she's made a good turn, and we'll hope that she gets home soon. But her husband, John, works in the 103, and just want to get the thoughts and prayers out to him.
Yeah.
Well
they live around the corner, which is just, everybody says, oh, I don't know anybody that this happened to. And I mean,
right.
This wasn't just like a little COVID. I mean, he had, ventilated 18 days. His kidneys went into kidney failure. He was on dialysis for 17 days. He almost didn't get the opportunity to get on dialysis. Stony Brook spent entire days trying to get him on the dialysis machine, that if they didn't, he was not going to make it. So they did 2 days. They didn't give up. They said, we're going to try again in a few hours. They tried hours at a time. Because what happens is the COVID blood starts to clot. So anytime they would put a catheter in him to be able to do what the machine needed to do, the clots would block the lines.
Jeez.
So they were sticking him in the neck, sticking him in the groin, trying to do everything to get him on this dialysis, and it wasn't working. So, I mean, for 2 people in such close proximity to be so sick, and we got people in the village that are upset because, the track's not open or, like crazy stuff.
Right, right. Yeah.
Straight.
Hey, listen, if you're a COVID denier, please don't watch my podcast, okay? could go watch somebody else's podcast. You know, when this gets up, this will be up in about a day or two. We'll make sure when we get this to Liz Hallahan, put on the South Alumni Facebook group. Liz was, by the way, very helpful with corralling all those Midtown South people for me, because sometimes it was overwhelming. Diane was handling Babylon. Billy Bender was probably handling all the fire department people. I had all the Midtown South people just pinging me night and day, you know, and there was a lot of love.
We put out my daughter Jessica put out a thing of a picture of me cooking on my grill last night. The night before, 50 likes, and you know, probably 200 of them were Midtown South alumni. So they are definitely.
Just want to point out, Sasuk strong. There we go. All right. Well, my Mets shirt for you there, Mike. I'm a Mets fan.
I didn't know what to wear. I was like, you know, what do I wear?
Mike, you could have come on in a nude if you wanted. We would have let you do whatever you want. Who cares?
I have no pants.
Outstanding.
That was one of the quirky things that happened in the hospital. They sent me up some clothes to wear, so I kept bugging the nurses. I wanted to wear a shirt. I wanted to wear a T-shirt. I didn't want the gown on. So one of the nurses, you know, she was fighting with me about it, and then she gave in. Put the T-shirt on me, but you know, she was like, I want you to know, you still don't have pants on.
You know, Mike, I know you. You're a bit of a private person, so I'm sure that it was like humiliating to have like 8, 9, 10 hands on you. And I think the last thing I'll leave our audience with, every cop has brought a gunshot victim to the hospital. A gunshot victim. You know, a person who's been shot with bullets. And the emergency people always strip the person's clothes off. And it's usually a man. 90% of people who get shot are men. 95% of people who get shot are men. And like, you know, the person's in a life or death struggle. But every cop standing there while this is going on, as soon as they put the Foley catheter in, the victim goes like this. And I was thinking to myself, you're intubated, you're on dialysis, they cut, you know, they must have had so many tubes and lines in you. But I was like, I go to Madeline, I go, do you think he's got a Foley? And Madeline looks at me, she goes, what's wrong with you? Of course he has a Foley. I was like, oh, he's got a Foley. Right now, some of our audience is Googling Foley. What's a Foley? Probably it will come up like there's probably a Foley's bar in your town, wherever you live. That's not what we're talking about. Mike and Diane, it was my distinct pleasure to have you guys as a guest on this episode. We'll have you back again, maybe to talk about police work or Midtown South. Mike, we'll probably have you back to talk about our good friend Tony Dwyer, who we always remember on this show. And it's wonderful to see you. Diane, you look great. You probably felt like you went 15 rounds with Mike Tyson. You look fantastic. Mike, you actually did go 15 rounds with Mike Tyson. By the way, a guy that Mike and I met back in the day. If we ever do like an episode after dark where we're drinking, we'll tell those tales.
Yeah. We have a couple of those.
But you literally went 15 rounds with the heavyweight champ, and Tyson Fury is now the heavyweight champ. The guy weighs like 290 pounds. You would not want to do that. And you look fantastic, Mike. You really, really look fantastic. All of your friends in Midtown South and everywhere who get to see this episode are going to be really, their hearts are going to be filled with how wonderful you look. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you, Stony Brook Medical Center, for saving his life. And thank you, Sasuk women, for being the heroes that you are. To everybody out there, to all the cops out there, please stay safe and come and join us the next time on Inside Blue 360.